I've got a confession to make. Recently, I've become very interested in the possibilities presented by user-created assets built on top of Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever blockchain you prefer. Really, at the core here, this is a conversation about bootstrapping, which is something that's very interesting to me. Bootstrapping is the process all would-be self-sustaining enterprise go through, many unsuccessfully. There's a period of time at the beginning of any new venture where the sheer newness of smallness of the venture is a big, blinking red light warning off first potential users. After all, who wants to use a completely new, unheard of, or unknown service, or eat at a deserted restaurant, or register on a forum where nobody's posting? It's all a matter of comparison. In a world where eBay dominates the person-to-person auction market, what reason would a buyer have to choose a brand new website with no sellers? And why would sellers list when there are no potential buyers? Bootstrapping is a chicken-egg problem. Which comes first, the valuable users or the users to generate value? Satoshi's solution with Bitcoin was novel. Give the privilege of receiving new Bitcoins to the miners, enabling the usefulness of the network. In other words, the system has these tokens, Bitcoins, that must be distributed somehow, and the chosen strategy, as designated in the Bitcoin specification, says that it is miners adding their hashing power to the network who add the most value to the network itself. They enable it for other users, so especially in the early days, miners were 100% critical, and the system needs all it can get to protect itself from bad actors. When this process started, the Bitcoins themselves were functionally worthless. Over time, as the network grew and found success, these worthless tokens became incredibly valuable. Bitcoin, of course, has some problems. The miner reward is only paid to a single miner, which has led to pool centralization, and some other not-so-great trends, but the fact remains that distributing new Bitcoins by making miners compete with every other miner on the planet has led to a wildly powerful Bitcoin network and spurred the creation of an entire class of machines doing what is functionally make work. Although the power of the Bitcoin mining network dwarfs the most powerful government or commercial supercomputers, hashing SHA-256 actually doesn't process transactions. It's merely the measuring stick by which all participants in the system are compared against. This isn't a complaint, rather an attempt to illustrate the power of tokens, released on a fixed, long-term, and deflationary schedule to participants adding the most value to the system. Imagine stumbling across a wishing well in a world where you only carry gold coins. Most people faced with the choice of throwing a valuable gold coin into a wet, deep hole in the ground probably aren't going to do it, even if it's really magical looking with cartoon Disney birds flying around. From basically any angle you look at this, it's a short-term and long-term bad economic move. And so faced with the choice, most people would walk on by because the cost of participation does not reflect the value they believe they'll get. Imagine finding the same well with a penny dispenser next to it. Each day as it gives out 10 pennies, with distribution based on how many people visit it. It's out of the way, you're the first to find it, and can take all 10 pennies if you want. Suddenly the value equation has changed, and where before the cost far outweighed the benefit, now your cost was just showing up. Given these conditions, I'd personally feel much more comfortable using the service of a wishing well, where before I probably never would have bothered. Over time, as other people find the well, the free pennies are split more ways until not everyone who visits each day can toss in a free coin. It's at this point where demand outweighs the freely available supply that a market price is required, and so the market establishes one. Lacking the free tokens, would the well have grown in popularity as much, or even at all? Probably not. The value of the token is a direct reflection of how popular the service is, and those who found the well early but saved some of the coins can even profit from their early support of these systems. A user-created asset at its core is a crypto token that does not give new tokens to the miners. Instead, riding on top of a platform like Bitcoin or Litecoin or Ethereum, where the processing of transactions is the main focus. User-created assets utilize the miners of another already secure chain, and so because security isn't a concern, the size of these ecosystems or the purpose of the coins can be very specific to their need, without compromising on security. And while it was never very hard to fork Bitcoin or Litecoin, it is technical. And while hundreds have found a dev, changed a few parameters, and struck out on their own, the reality is the only people who went down this path believed they could do what Bitcoin was already doing, but better. As Bitcoin mining has become more difficult and old hardware obsoleted, miners still holding that hardware have a very real incentive to look for the next network where their transactional mining will be more valuable due to less competition and more deflationary potential. And that's a huge thing. New crypto tokens, whether attempting to compete with Bitcoin or riding on top of it, have much greater deflationary potential relative to the amount of time or money invested, simply because they're so much earlier in their life cycle. User-created assets don't want to process transactions, have miners or developers. They don't want to have to worry about patching implementation vulnerabilities, and by building on top of the already very secure Bitcoin network, they don't have to. If these new tokens aren't given to the people securing the network, they can be given to the people adding value to whatever the project is. This is called non-computational mining. Although crowdfunding services like Kickstarter have become very popular in recent years, through the use of crypto tokens, we can do better. Kickstarter brought the donate and get a reward model to the world stage, but what if you think a project is neat but don't see the value in the reward for yourself or anyone you know? Or maybe you like the reward but don't agree with the donation amount you want to give in order to receive it. The way things are now, if you don't want the reward, there's very little reason to support a project, even if it's a good idea or you think it can succeed. Sure, you can just donate, but in practice, most people view their donation and its reward as a pre-order. Lock-in is another big thing in the world of crowdfunding. I've supported many projects with estimated deliveries of 6 months only to see delay pile on delay multiplying the wait. Sometimes it's okay with me, sometimes it's not. But again, the reality is I have no choice in this situation. I'm totally trapped. While refunds aren't formally supported on crowdfunding platforms, since they're donation-based, people do occasionally give them when they feel as though they failed to meet the expectations of those viewing their donations as pre-orders. This has sometimes resulted in whole projects blowing up as the founder gives money they don't have or that's needed to finish the project for the backers who remain patient. It's a terrible situation for everybody. Adding a token eliminates this problem too. Think of crowdfunding a grocery store. Sure, you could pre-order a pallet of canned soup, but wouldn't it be better if you received store credit instead? While there are relatively few buyers for a pallet of soup, imagine if a token, call it store credit, was given instead. Store credit, as good or better than cash at the store in question, is much easier to find a buyer for. So just as backers can profit from a successful project, so can they escape a project they no longer want to be a part of. Of course, if that's the general sentiment, they'll certainly be selling these tokens at a discount to what they paid. But compared to the situation now, where the project succeeds and you get what you purchased, or the project fails and you get nothing at all, it's better for everyone to have options. This is also non-destructive to the project, since the process doesn't even involve the founder or their project funding. People who want to get out can make their escape via the market without disrupting the project for everybody else. I'm working on a project called Tatiana Coin with Tatiana Moroz. It's one of the first so-called crowdfunding coins, and it's also one of the first artist coins. Tatiana wants to raise an amount of money, let's say $100,000, to record her new album and a tour to support it. The crowdfunding page at first glance looks pretty normal, funding goals and backer rewards, but rather than signing on for a $40 album and t-shirt package, the individual receives back $40 worth of Tatiana Coin when the project successfully funds. Those tokens trade on a centralized and decentralized market, so from the minute the funding is over and the tokens are created, then distributed, the market is valuing them. Because these tokens are only issued in that one batch to support Tatiana's specific project, if the thing you can use them for is something more people want when the project is finished, the album is ready to ship, the tour is starting, and then at the beginning, before the album exists, they should be deflationary. If they are deflationary, early supporters of the project will see the value of the tokens they received in exchange for their donation increase. And so when the rewards are ready, the number of Tatiana coin required to purchase your desired reward has gone down. Really what we're doing here is creating an ecosystem where people who support Tatiana's music or activism or her other projects can invest in her early, give her the resources to make a bigger impact than she would be able to do lacking that support, and those supporters then profit from her success as more people discover her work and also want to support her. A smaller ecosystem like Tatiana Coin is valuable because it's a partnership between the funded project and the backers supporting it, where everybody gets what they want, and backers aren't trapped by a failing project, but rather spiraling up as successful funding and effective use of those funds leads to a higher profile and successful project. After the first success, Tatiana can use the same coin to fundraise for her next project, except instead of tokens being created and distributed at the original fixed rate, they're created at whatever the current market rate is. So when the money supply expands, it's being backed up by real value moving into the ecosystem. Instead of diluting earlier donors, each new token coming in reinforces that the current market rate is the correct one because people are paying real money for it right now. When Oculus Rift, the prototype virtual reality headgear, was funded on Kickstarter, they received millions of dollars worth of support to develop a very speculative project. Not too long ago, they were purchased by Facebook for $2 billion US worth of cash and stock. And the backers who put their collective millions that brought the project to that point, they got developer kits as promised, and that's about it. My background is heavy in video games, so Oculus was always one of those projects that was interesting to me, but I didn't want a developer kit, so I didn't support it. If a token solution had been in place, not only would I have supported it, but the purchase by Facebook would have skyrocketed the value of that token that everybody had bought. And this would have happened at no cost to the Oculus Rift team, simply because the project has so many more eyeballs swiveling to look at what has become a very high-profile project indeed. I'd love to tell you about permacredits, the local cryptocurrency for the global permaculture movement we're getting ready to launch soon, but it's basically just this same type of idea applied to real estate, and the scale is about 10 or 20 times as large as a Tatiana coin. Once again, tokens go to whomever is adding the most value to the network. So in the example so far, that's people who donate funds which make the project happen. It's fairly simple. On the other hand, there are many situations where the activity adding value is actually non-monetary in nature. Imagine a jobs board like coinality.com. People looking for workers go there to post, people looking for work go there to post, but the thing that really adds value are successful, happy matches over the medium to long term between those two types of users. We could create a new token called JobsCoin, which is distributed at a daily fixed rate to successful, happy matches that then has like a check-in feature 6 months later for a second round of it. So if only one person successfully confirms they got the job and the employer successfully confirms that not only they have the job but the fit is good, the two parties split the new tokens distributed that day. If there are 100 such matches in a day, it's split 100 ways. Again, the thing that we never want is complete inactivity. Services that have no users are useless services, and inactivity broadcasts that fact, making the situation worse. Those tokens can be used for a variety of things, such as voting up or featuring positions of a chosen job posting or resume. By not fixing prices and letting users simply bid against each other for positional advantage, as the service becomes more popular, so will the competition become more fierce, which means that those wanting prominence, it'll be very important to acquire the coin, probably through the market and probably from people who have acquired less coin and would rather sell them than use them. It's a good interview with Peter Todd today, so I'm not going to take up too much more of your time, but I would like to talk really briefly about LTB Coin. Let's Talk Bitcoin.com is a content network. We create original journalism and entertainment, so there are 3 ways that individuals can add value to our system. The most valuable way is to create good, engaging content that meets our rather high quality standards and release it on our platform. Content creators receive the largest share of new LTB coin distributed weekly based on 2 sets of criteria. The first is proof of quality. When you release a new piece and it meets LTB's rather strict publishing protocol, you get a share of the week's new tokens. If there's 1 piece of content released, you get all of it. If there are 100 pieces of content released and you all have the same point value, a 600-word blog post is worth less than an hour-long produced video show, for example, then they split the week's allocation. Next is proof of value. This is a composite metric that'll grow over time as we figure out what works, but basically it's a combination of revenue generated and reach. This is a second round of compensation that takes place about a month after the piece has been released. So this distribution is weighted to encourage people to create content that the audience finds valuable or that sponsors want to support. Engagement with the audience adds the next largest amount of value, and so we reward our favorite behaviors with new tokens. Proof of commenting, proof of tipping, and proof of sharing. Each day, the amount of tips, the number of comments weighted by community votes, and how much impact an individual sharing had are tallied up and compared against all other participants in those individual programs on that specific day. Those individuals then receive their share of the new token based on their contribution. So it's easy to imagine on a slow day, sending a tiny tip to a content creator might actually make a profit from the new tokens that are rewarded, simply because on that day, that small tip was the big spender. The value for LTB Coin comes from our sponsorships and advertising. Once we start this program, if you want to sponsor a show on the LTB network, advertise with a banner, whatever, you'll need to bid in it on LTB Coin in our auctions. This sounds like a barrier to entry. I mean, who would bother? But our problem has never been demand from advertisers. Rather, it's our ability to follow up with them because we don't employ salespeople, and I spend most of my time making content and talking with people. Rather than auction-specific sponsorships that are locked and non-transferable, LTB will be publishing our sponsor standards and selling at auction for LTB Coin what we're calling sponsor tokens. These sponsor tokens use the same wallet as Bitcoin and LTB Coin, and once purchased from LTB can be traded or sold for any cryptocurrency to any group or individual who would find it more valuable than the value that original person paid in LTB Coin. So this means that while I only have to worry about maximizing our LTB Coin sales by attracting more interested people, these people don't have to be sponsors. They can be profit-seeking individuals who jump through our specific hoops to acquire LTB Coin, acquire these sponsor tokens, and then sell it to someone who values it for profit. Over time, frequent sponsors will probably find it more valuable to simply be in the deflationary LTB Coin ecosystem and deal with us directly because it's cheaper to cut out the middleman. But that's going to take a while, and so in the interim, there's this opportunity for people to act as our sales reps and to profit from it. This solves both our short-term and our long-term problem without requiring me to become a salesperson or to pick someone who's going to be a great individual salesperson. One of the most common reactions I get to talking about user-created assets is the thought that they won't be big enough and that the ecosystem will be much smaller than Bitcoin. This is actually very true, and I think it's good. Small things are specific, and small things are powerful, and powerful, underappreciated small things have the most potential to become very big things once the base of the community and evangelism is established. User-created assets allow you to align the incentives of all participants in the system with the success of whatever your specific project is, because the success of your project is their financial gain. So what I'd like you to take away from this is that any problem that you had in the past that involved trying to motivate people to get on the same page as you and to see the value in what you're doing, I really would encourage you to take a look at the problem through the lens of user-created assets and incentivizing behavior with tokens. Because I think that many of these bootstrapping problems have been fundamentally solved now. We now have a good template by following the lessons of Bitcoin to bootstrap anything and to take any idea. I mean, the idea still has to be good. It still has to be enough that people want to participate and see the potential in it. But there's a way now for people to be vested in what you're doing, whether it be through monetary means or not, that I think is really going to change how these projects get implemented and what is possible and what is not. So take the logic of cryptocurrency and the logic of user-created assets and see if it changes your situation now. And then make it happen. I look forward to another very full year of cryptocurrency and Bitcoin with everybody. Thanks for listening.
CryptoKit is the world's first Chrome browser Bitcoin wallet. It's the easiest, fastest Bitcoin wallet payment system. With a simple one-click install, it takes just seconds to get your wallet set up. And because CryptoKit finds the address and payment for you, there's no more fussing around or tab switching. CryptoKit is more than just a wallet. It comes with a preloaded PGP encrypted social network, news feeds from Reddit and Google, and up-to-date charts from exchanges. Finally, CryptoKit Directory allows you to make two-click payments with any of the BitPay merchants. Once you install CryptoKit, you won't need anything else. For more information or to download CryptoKit, visit CryptoKit.com.